members, motion moved and seconded is now for the consideration of the House. Honorable Kennedy Agyapong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak on the issue at stake here. I have a fun with the composition of the committee. The conclusion says the committee respectfully recommends to the House to adopt this report and approve the membership of the Business and Appointment Committee as composed based on the approval ratio of 138 and 137, subject to the recommendations made. Mr. Speaker, what is the ratio of 138 and 137? The report here clearly indicates that there is no importance of the independent candidate working with MPP. Case closed. That is what is here. The report, yes, the report from Mr. Speaker. My mathematics is 50.11 and 49.89. Yes. So this is simple as in the mathematics. And if, Mr. Speaker, if it is not important, why would you say that an independent candidate has opted to work with a particular party to be the majority? So, first of all, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, I think the number should be odd. Members, now let us listen carefully. If you have 13 and there's issue on the floor, NDC will vote 13, MPP will vote. Hold on, please. This, Mr. Speaker, there will be a stalemate before you build a consensus. Why would you even want to arrive at stalemate before you build consensus? No. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we have to be careful in dealing with this issue here. Because 50.11 it's not. If it is 50-50, why would you then say a ratio of, Mr. Speaker, the ratio of 138-137? It doesn't give you 50-50. It doesn't give you 50-50. Mr. Speaker, a ratio of 138-137 is not 50-50. If it is 50-50, Honorable Muntaka would have not used the word ratio. He would have said 50-50. But because you know that there's going to be that is why you use the word ratio. And if you are using the ratio, Mr. Speaker, then instead of making a fundamental mistake to build consensus, I am of the opinion that, Mr. Speaker, the number should be odd. It should be 25. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rest my case.
Honorable Emmanuel Bejira.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion and also add my voice to the debate. Mr. Speaker, this is a house of record. And as we always have people at the gallery to take note of how we do in this house. Every mathematician will tell you that 50.1, when you run it up, becomes 50. And 49.87, when you run it up, becomes 50%. And therefore today, we are being told in this house that 50.1 should be 50 plus 1. That's exactly what our colleagues are telling us. And as a House of Record, Mr. Speaker, we must all admit that 50.1% will always be 50.1%. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, your committee's report and table 4, Mr. Speaker, table 2 on page 4, I've noticed something, Mr. Speaker, that my colleagues from the other side, having regard for women, gender on their side, have only 2 ladies on this table. And I can count more than 2 ladies on their side. But when it comes, Mr. Speaker, to our side, we have 3 ladies coming from our side. I was expecting, Mr. Speaker, that as gender sensitive as they are, they be arguing that they should take one of the male out and add another female to it, making 3. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, this house, over the years, we said we want unity to those who come fresh so that they can learn from us. I've also noticed that, Mr. Speaker, the first timers from their side are only 2, and the first timers from our side are 3. This alone shows that the people or the caucus on your left side have regard for first timers and for gender, whilst our colleagues on the other side do not have respect for gender and for first timers. Mr. Speaker, I want to plead with my colleagues to take the table back and replace one of the male with a female. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you quoted 109, it applies to this chamber. But I was leading him to where it could be applied in a committee. And that was why I took him to order 200. Because it is order 200 of this house. That says that, Mr. Speaker, for the avoidance of that, want to quote again. In committees, the standing orders of the house shall be observed so far as may be applicable. So I was then saying, the 109 with this 200 is saying that in committees, as much as possible, the rules that you apply in the chamber, let it apply there. And so when it was making this reference, it used may, meaning that it's not every single thing that you apply in the chamber here that is it can be applicable in the committee. That's why it said may. It says so far as may be applicable. And that's why I was saying that when you look at the application of these standing orders, Mr. Speaker, 3 things guide this house. First, the constitution of this country, the 1992 constitution. Second is the standing orders of this house. And third, very important, is our practices. What we have come to mean to be an established rule that we all use in application. And that's what I'm saying, that if you look at our 1992 constitution, Article 104.2, Mr. Speaker, Article 104.2, when it was talking about voting, the constitution in Article 104.2, and Mr. Speaker, I will tell you that I read, the Speaker shall have neither an original nor casting vote. Meaning that our constitution recognizes that apart from Mr. Speaker, every single one of us must have a vote. And that is why when you go to the committee, our practice has always been consistent with this constitution, where our chairpersons have always voted. And that's why I cited an example of all our predecessors in the appointments committee vote. So, Mr. Speaker, if today we found ourselves with 137 members from the NPP and then 137 from the NDC, with 1 independent who had decided to do business with our colleagues from the NPP, when you even add for the application of committee numbers, it gives you 138, 137. And Mr. Speaker, when you reduce it to how we've always done in this House, the percentages, it gives you 50.1 for our colleagues in the MPP and 49.89. And every time in this House, I remember in the ratio was 55-45, in the 7th Parliament it was 60-40. We always run them to the nearest whole number. If you are running 50.1 to the nearest whole number, it takes you to 50. If you are running 49.89 to the nearest whole number, it takes you to 50. And that is why the 26 membership of the committee was agreed in the selection committee to be 13 on both sides of the House. And in the business committee, also 10-10. Mr. Speaker, let me state, it is part of this reason that all of us in leadership had agreed that we should expedite the action on the new standing orders. And if I remember very well, we agreed that we should give ourselves, by the close of this week, latest, not exceeding next week, to be able to take care of the challenges that we find ourselves. My plea with our colleagues opposite, especially the leadership, is that the difficulty we have is when we go into a meeting and we agree, then later becomes like an afterthought. It becomes a problem because in the selection, in the committee of selection, as it took place in Mr. Speaker's conference room, all my colleague, the deputy leader, was there. The leader of government business was there. We agreed to this 13-13. Yes, as we always say in this chamber, agreeing in a committee doesn't take away your right to disagree when you get to the floor. But I believe that we need to start well by trying to get our basics and fundamentals right, so that as we proceed, there will be many more committees that will come where you will have all numbers. And my view, and I believe that it will be a very fair position, that if you have 4 25-member committees, 2 of them should have 13 for our colleagues in MPP, and 2 of them should also have 13 for our members from on the NDC, so that it creates equity. If we are not careful and we want to take every committee and be arguing the way we are doing, it will mean that when we are going to do these committees, it may not to be able to finish. So, Mr. Speaker, in line with our standing orders and the practice of this House, I believe that the report, your report that came from the selection committee is absolutely right, and we all need to support it. With this comment, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have contributed to a statement. Thank you very much.